Welcome to the Yessy's Designs Knitting Podcast, episode 20. If you are a returning viewer, I'm so happy that you're here, and I hope that you love this episode that I have prepared for you. If this is the first time that you're here, my name is Yessy. I am the maker and the designer behind Yessy's Designs. You're gonna find all of my handles in the description below with the places where you can see my work as well. On this episode, I have a few things prepared for you. I had a market a couple of weekends ago, and I noticed something, so this episode is gonna be a little different. You know that at markets, you get the opportunity to talk to so many people. And I think that the thing that I talk about the most this weekend when I had that market was about how Yessy's Designs came to life. And I noticed that I have shared little bits of my story through the years on Instagram. I did a blog post for our Maker Life where I share more details about it, but I noticed that I haven't shared the whole story here on the channel. So today's episode is gonna focus on the story about Yessy's Designs and a couple more things. So if you want to stay in touch with what is happening on my channel, you are more than welcome to subscribe so you don't miss new episodes. If at the end of the video you liked or enjoyed this episode, please press like, leave a comment. It helps me and it helps my channel to grow. Now, one thing that you're gonna see today is that I'm gonna be reaching out to different places. One of the reasons is because some of the things that I'm going to show you are in front of me. I'm recorded with my phone, but I have the audio recording on my son's laptop, and I have my notes on my laptop. So there is going to be a little bit of me looking everywhere. So please, I apologize for that. And at the same time, thank you for bearing with me. I thought for today's episode, it would have been great to have one of those teleprompters, but let's work with what we have. It's either me looking down on the paper. So today the computer, my laptop is the thing that is going to help me not to forget some of the details that I want to share with you. Most likely at the end of the recording, I'm going to realize that I forgot something, but I'm going to try to share as much as possible with you. One thing that I didn't mention is that I'm recording in my studio in Connecticut, in my home. So this is where everything happens. I have my knitting books, I have my sketch notebooks, I have a little section here that belongs to my daughter who loves to work on jewelry. So she has her own shelf here with all of her tools and beads and all the fun stuff. And everything else is mostly yarn, my essential oils, which are a great part in my studio to keep me motivated, to make me feel cozy, to make me feel maybe relaxed or creative. And it's one of those things that help me to stay for a longer time working here. I love my environment. I love my studio. It helps me to continue to be creative. So before I share with you the story of how Yessy's Design started, get your knitting or your crochet, get your painting supplies, or get a cozy drink and enjoy. I'm going to start showing you a couple of things. One of them, I know I shared that on my Instagram account, but I wanted to share that with you here. I got from Darn Good Yarn the subscription box for the month of September. So this is something new that they have been doing, and I'm so grateful that they sent me a sample of their subscription box for that month. I still have to get to it, but Darn Good Yarn is one of the companies that will always be very special for me, not just because of the things that they do to make this yarn come to life, to bring this yarn to us, but also because back in the day when everything started, this is the first company that reached out to me to design a pattern for them at a point where I thought I'm not ready. In a lot of ways, looking back, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just knitting, I was designing. I think at the time I just released one pattern, the Anthony Cowl. And they trusted my work so much, and that gave me so much confidence to continue to show my work out there. So I had designs on my notebooks. I have knit them before, but I hadn't showed them all to the knitting world. And I was so grateful that they trusted me so much to design something for them. So I designed the Magnolia beanie, which up to this day, it's my number one pattern that, that I have released that is like the most popular. The Magnolia beanie, the Mary hat, the Magnolia headband, the Magnolia oversized scarf, all the Magnolias and the Marys, they have been my number one popular pattern since the very beginning. None other pattern have been able to surpass the popularity of this one. So I am always grateful every time I see that somebody purchased something from the Magnolia collection. It really touches me. It makes me think of the humble beginnings. So this is what came in this subscription box for September. This is a beautiful silk yarn. The yarn of the month, it's Grease, Olympian Odyssey, DK Weight Recycled Silk Yarn. This is a beautiful color. I am thinking so far, and this is what I shared on my Instagram, I want to make a Sophie shawl with this because I haven't made a Sophie shawl in silk, and this is so luxurious. It is so soft and so pretty that I would really love to wear. This will be a piece for me. And I would love to wear a Sophie shawl in this yarn. They also sent me this shawl pin. Again, the theme is Grease. And along with the yarn, they send you a booklet with a couple patterns by a couple designers that are free here. So if you wanna design something, if you wanna make something crochet or knitting, they have the patterns right here. So. And also some of the story of this yarn and the theme of this collection in general. So I don't have pictures to show you without show. I mean, I have a couple pictures of the patterns here, but all the details are in there. So I'm not gonna be able to show you that, but it is a very nice subscription box. So I'm looking forward to dive into this yarn in the coming weeks. Right now, I am so busy, way more busier than I thought I was gonna be at this time of the year. I know that, we all knitters and crocheters, we know that this is our busy season, especially if you are a maker. Me, for example, I go to markets, and I have 4 markets this year. On December, I have my last market, so I'm getting ready for that. And along with it, I am working on 2 projects for Blue Sky Fibers. This is something that you're gonna start seeing on December. So I am in full designing mode and making mode and writing the pattern and trying to have everything ready on time. So my whole focus has been there, and in between, like if I'm working late in the night and I need complete focus in the designing process. I take a break, and then I work on some pieces that I would like to bring to my market on December. So stay tuned, because I really hope that you like it. I am so excited about this piece, the one that you should be seeing on December. Let's say that it should be ready. It has to be ready on December. So I'm going to start showing that in a few weeks. Now, the other thing is that I realized that when I was talking about my Rhinebeck experience on my last video, I forgot, and I had it on my notes, but at some point my notes got misplaced, and that's why I am trying to make sure that I have everything here so I don't forget. One of the designers that I have been looking forward to meet for so long is Claudia Quintanilla. If you are not familiar with Claudia, she is the designer behind Unit Co. And she just released a book, and it's precious. So I had the opportunity to meet Claudia. I'm going to be including videos or pictures as I talk. So you're going to see I took a couple pictures with Claudia. Her husband took the pictures, actually. And she is so beautiful. She's a beautiful person. What a beautiful demeanor. She gives you time. As soon as I saw her, my whole Spanish came out. Big hug. And it was just so nice to meet her. One of the things that I love about Claudia, and it's one of the things that I'm going to be talking about as I share my experience or my story with my own brand, is that she goes back to her roots. And she's from El Salvador. And one of the things that I was talking with Claudia as also Latin American designer is that a lot of people, they have kind of an idea or they expect something from a Latina. And not all of us, let's say, portray our culture in the same way. So depending on the country where you are from, you have your own, I don't want to say traditions, but you have like your own culture, let's say. I was surrounded, for example, by indigenous from the Wayús. They are the Wayús on the coast of Colombia. So they have their own distinctive trade or the way they do things, the colors that they use or the different patterns that they use. El Salvador, they have their own. And if you can do a little bit of research of different countries in South America, not everybody portrays, or not everybody is the same, let's say this way. So one of the things that I love about Claudia is that in her designs, you can see her taste and you can see how she incorporates her own culture and the things that she grew up surrounded with in her patterns. As I was reading her book, I'm going to show it to you in a second because the book is absolutely beautiful. I was reading her book. I'm not done yet. But it really got me, the part when she shares that one of the people that inspire her is Gabriel Garcia Marquez. So this is something that, again, I have mentioned before. I have shared some in my stories or posts, depending on where I am reading his books. But Gabriel Garcia Marquez is also my favorite my favorite author. I have read most of his books. I have a few of his books in my own library. So my love, besides my crafts, is books. I love to read. So I have a lot of my books here. I have the other books that I have read in containers, and because I cannot display everything, I should get more storage units, I guess. But I have been reading his books since I am a little girl, and I have read them again and again and again. And it's one of those things that every time you read it, you want to share something about it with the world. So I share more about my story again, but now focusing on Claudia. When I read that about her, it's like, oh my, I get you. I really truly love that she portrays her culture in such a beautiful way. So let me just show you the book. So her book is called Memory Lane. It's beautiful. And it's not a thin book. It's a book. I love thick books. So I'm going to show you a couple of the designs that really caught my eye. There are three. I mean, I love them all, but there are three that when I saw them, I said, this has to be made by me at some point, and I have to wear these at some point. So the first one is Dorata. So Dorata is this beautiful sweater, and it has, I'm going to see if the camera shows it, it has these beautiful butterflies. So she adds these butterflies at the end after you made the sweater. And I'm going to try to show you. I'm looking for a page where I can show you. Okay, let me try like this, how the sweater looks. Do you see how pretty that is? So one of the things that I loved about this sweater, besides how beautiful it is that there was a time when I was like an older teenager, young adult, and there is a brand back home, and the brand was about butterflies on leather. So for many years, it was my favorite brand. And all my jeans, belts, my purses, they had all of these butterflies that I love. I still have a few of those purses from back then. And, being leather is not going to turn bad or anything. I still use these bags. So when I saw this sweater, I was like, I have to make it. Butterflies are a huge part in my life. And again, with this pattern from Claudia Quintanilla, you get some of the story behind the design. The other pattern that also caught my eye, and I saw it and I was thinking, this is something that I would wear a lot. It would look amazing in my wardrobe. I would wear it proudly. And I thought of all the outfit possibilities for this sweater. This one is called Azul. Look how beautiful that is. So this is the other one, and there was one more that is just beautiful. I love Fair Isle work, and I will talk more about it again when I share my story, but I love Fair Isle sweaters, Fair Isle mittens, hats, and everything that is Fair Isle. This one also has some embellishments in the design, and look how beautiful this is. This is called El Naranjo. So if you're not familiar with Claudia, go to her Instagram, and from there you can see, you can go to her link in her bio, look at the website. But the designs are just absolutely beautiful. She's having a retreat in Costa Rica with Fruity Knitting, Andrea and Madeline. And I hope that Claudia does more retreats in the future because it would be amazing to go to one of her retreats, to work on her designs, to get classes from her and how to make our knitting look just more beautiful, adding embellishments to the sweater. So I'm going to leave a little message here for Claudia. I don't know if she's ever going to see this podcast, but I want to leave something for her in Spanish. It's going to be a message of thank you, a message of gratitude, and just something from me to her in Spanish. Claudia, si estás viendo esto, qué gusto haberte conocido, qué gusto haber conocido a tu esposo. Ahora que estoy leyendo tu libro, me identifico tanto con cosas de las que dices ahí, cómo poder seguir conectadas con nuestra cultura y poderla seguir mostrando al resto del mundo desde nuestra propia creatividad. Un beso, un abrazo para ti. Espero volverte a ver y volverte a dar un abrazo en algún otro momento y seguir conectadas. Gracias por todo lo lindo que haces. Gracias por mostrarnos al resto de latinas que nosotras podemos, que nosotras no tenemos que dejar nuestro background atrás, no tenemos que dejar nuestra cultura atrás para poder mostrar algo lindo. Nuestra cultura ya es linda y la manera en que nosotras la mostramos al resto de gente es muy linda también. Muchas gracias por el tiempo que me diste a mí, que me diste a mi hija, por lo que pudimos hablar. Y te dejo un beso y un abrazo. Cuídate mucho, Claudia. Hasta otro momento. Okay. Oh my. Now, I had not prepared this at all. This was not on my notes whatsoever. But okay, now let me put myself back together and let me share more about your story. So the fact that I was teary leaving this message is just telling me that I might not be able to go through with my own story. So I moved to Canada when I was in my early 20s, after I married my husband. My husband, he's Canadian citizen, so I moved there. And I was trying for a way to continue to connect with my Colombia, with my roots. So back in Colombia, I went to university. I have a bachelor's degree in education, and I have a few other diplomas. I don't know how to explain that. I don't know what is the term for that. But for example, teaching Spanish to companies or being a translator for Spanish companies. I have a few other courses that I took about how to help children with certain disabilities. So it was my dream to go to Spain to study cognitive development and then come back home and have my own practice where I will be helping children with cognitive disabilities along with their families. So everything changed after I met the love of my life. Like it's usually the case. So I moved. So before I met my husband and married, I was working as a teacher. I was also working as an art teacher with a country painting technique on the weekends. So I had a group of kids at this shop that sold wooden kits for country painting. So I had a group of kids that I would teach on Saturdays during my summer vacation, meaning summer vacation from school. I would also go to communities that were not that were in need, and I would go with a group of other classmates to help women that were pregnant, how to stimulate, their bellies, teaching them, during this month you should expect this, during this month your baby's going to be able to hear your voice, during this month this is going to happen. So different exercises that they could do as they were pregnant, how to prepare themselves. Also to communities where there were no schools, but the mothers were the ones in charge of the education of the children. So we would go to these communities and we would help these women to write curriculums according to the age groups and do activities with them, craft activities, bring in school supplies. I really love my work. I really loved everything that I did there, and I picture myself doing that for the rest of my working life. So at the same time, I went to a school that had a huge focus on arts. So I learned how to crochet, which I just know by now the basics. I knew more back then, but I think because I'm so out of practice, I cannot say that I'm a crocheter. I could have said that before. I just need to get back on that role of, okay, this is how this stitch is called, and this is how I read the pattern and all of that. So we were taught how to crochet, how to paint on fabric, how to paint on porcelain, ink painting, color pencil paintings or drawings, oil paintings, you name it, so many things. Not knitting. Knitting was not in there, but every year we had at least a couple of creative outlets that we were taught. So I loved all of these. So that's why I continue after I was done with school. I continued to take courses. I went to different workshops, and it took years. All of these took many years. So I knew I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be focused on the arts as well. And once I would go to markets with my paintings. So that's how I started. That's where my first markets were, with my paintings. When I moved to Canada, I continued doing markets with my paintings. So things painted on wood. I learned how to do the one-stroke technique. I would go and paint anything on wood, walls, on cards. So my markets were all about painting. When I was doing that, and the markets in Canada there were many more than what I was exposed to back in my city in Colombia, I knew that I wanted to continue doing that. So at the time that I was in Canada, I was teaching at a Montessori school, and I was going on the weekends that there were markets available to go with my markets. So he was teaching and painting at home and going to markets, and I loved that. So there was one day sitting in our kitchen that I'm talking to my husband about, there is this market coming and the things that I wanted to work on for these markets. And, at some point in the conversation, it sounded like, yes, this is what I want to continue to do. So my husband, he just said, you need a name. At that, I am not that creative. I'm going to be super honest. I couldn't think of now that obviously many years later, and I see the handles of so many people, or for example, how they call their podcast, I was not creative at all. So from everything that I could think of, including Colombia, including everything that I could think of, I just couldn't come up with anything. that I really liked, something that actually clicked until my husband said, what about Yessy's designs? I mean, what else? And I said, well, when he said that, I said, okay, I really like that one. I think I would have maybe liked something that sounded more creative, but that's what it was. It was Jesse's designs because I liked so many things. I couldn't just include like wooden crafts or paper crafts or mural painting. So that's what it came about, and that's what has remained. And now that I have my podcast, and I really tried again to think of something that would be sounding more creative. I still couldn't come up with anything. So let's just call my podcast the Yessy's Designs Podcast. This is what it is. So maybe at some point something is going to hit and I'm going to tell you, I changed the name. But for now, that's what it is, because I might include more things that, I don't know. I might include everything in here. So after we were in Canada, we were relocated from his job here to the States, and I continued with my painting. I was still teaching at a private school, and I was painting. So, and that's the way I was doing things. I really liked it. I really loved it. I kept learning. I kept going to workshops. I'm one of those people that feel that we never stop learning. So I attended seminars in my career, workshops in arts, and I really loved that pace. Then the children came years later, my first son, and I quit my job right before I was pregnant with him. I quit my job as a teacher, and right away I got pregnant, and I knew that I didn't want anybody else to take care of my child, besides the fact that I don't have family here. So there was no mom who could say, I'll watch him on the afternoons, or you can leave him in my home this many days a week, or anything like that. I knew right away that I wanted to be the one being with my baby. So I kept working on my paintings until, and at the time I was doing oil paintings again, and the fumes were too much. So I stopped that and I focused just on acrylic paintings and jute bags. So in Colombia, I'm from the coast. We had, again, the Wayús, this indigenous community, and they are just amazing. Their art is so beautiful. I always loved it. Obviously, I grew up surrounded by seeing their work, by seeing them. And I learned how to make bags inspired by them. So I would go, every time I would go back home to visit my mom, I would get these classes where it was the Wayuu techniques about how to make these bags. And they were made out of jute. So jute, and I would choose the jute that was grown in Colombia. So making these bags would take from 3 weeks to 4 weeks. It was very rough on the hands. It took a long time. They were absolutely beautiful, but it wasn't practical for what I wanted. Now, at this time, being pregnant, I thought, maybe I can go back to teaching when my baby starts going to school. That's what I was thinking at the time. But I didn't want to, I wanted to continue to do something at home. So I worked on the jute bags. I attended markets, but in a practical way, these bags would take so much, rough on the hands. You had to take breaks because it was damaging to your hands. And I thought, this is not going to be something that I can keep doing on a regular basis. So I just stopped. I finished with the bags that I was starting, went to one last market with them, and I just had 2 left from that market that I still have. And I was thinking, okay, now what? So I stopped doing the jute bags. I was working on hand-painted cards. So that's what I was doing for markets. And then I was heavily pregnant. To the ones that know me, they know that I was heavily pregnant very early in my pregnancy. So there was a time where it was very hard to do anything. I didn't fit in the tables at the restaurants. It was hard to get in and out of the car. So for the last maybe month or so, I was at home. When I was about 7 months pregnant, I don't remember how this came to happen. I wanted to make baby beanies for my babies. So I went and at 7 months pregnant, I went and I took classes with a lady in another town, maybe about 3 towns over. And she taught me how to make the baby beanies. At the time, I had no idea what yarn was good for a baby or not, and they didn't tell me that either. So I would go to the most beautiful yarns, which were the merinos, not cheap. And I got like so much yarn. And I wasn't even started yet. I mean, it was like my first class, and I got all of this yarn. Now I have to rewind because I just remember, and I knew it was going to happen. I remember that I forgot the main part about now I why I started knitting. So when I was in my late 20s, my grandmother, my mom's mom, got sick. She was a super loving grandmother. We still miss her so much. And she was always very hardworking. She was a seamstress. She had her own business. After that, a different kind of business. But I always saw my grandmother very, very, very active. Now, she got sick, and there was a point where she was bedridden. At this point, my mom took her to live with her so she and my aunt and my other aunt and uncle could take care of her. They didn't want to leave her. It was better for her to be there, being taken care of by her kids. So I would go regularly to see her and spend time with her during all of this process. And in my last visit, she was really bedridden, but she could still use her hands. So my mom, my aunt, they thought, since she was so active before, we need her to do something. So they said, what if we bring needles and yarn and she can do something from her bed? So they started to gather all the supplies, but by the time they got them, she couldn't use the hands anymore. So this is when I arrived again to visit and to help. And I see this yarn, these needles, and they told me what happened. So I said, I'll go. Like that same day, I called this place that is a few blocks away from my mom's. That is like a mini Tiny Michael's. It looks like a dollhouse. It's very small. That's where we always went to get our yarn for crochet, for beads, for beading, lace. It was a beautiful, beautiful place. So I called and I talked to one of the owners and I said, do you girls teach how to knit? They also had yarn and needles and all of that. And I would get the jute in there as well. So they said, yes, what do you need? So I stopped by and I said, I need to learn how to knit. This is what I have. So I had my big needles. I still have them here. And I chose a yarn that it was beautiful. Again, this is my first time that I'm in contact with knitting. So I chose this yarn that is all fluffy, full of embellishments. I chose it and I said, okay, teach me. So they said, okay, we're going to start from the beginning. We're going to make a scarf just using the net stitch on one side and the purl on the other side. And I'm like, okay, great, let's do it. So they start teaching me. I cannot see with this yarn what the net stitch looks like. What does the purl stitch looks like? I still see this scarf. I still have it full of mistakes and you cannot see the stitches. And they didn't tell me, it's better if you get a yarn with nothing, just so you can see the stitches. So I am like doing my thing. I would go home and continue practicing unraveling these things. So I would sit next to my grandma. Her name was Uno. That's how we call her. Uno, like the number. And I would sit next to her and she would just go like this on the yarn and put her hand on top of mine as I was knitting. And that's all I wanted. I just said, I just, she cannot knit or do something. I'm just going to do something next to her. And, that's it. So we would have that moment of knitting and on the TV. And she stayed in my old room. In the TV, we had all Mexican movies. She loved those Mexican movies, and I love them so much as well. And every time I come across one, I just watch it. They were black and white. They were beautiful, and some of them, they were just so funny. And that was our time in there. So I finished that scarf. I don't know how. I still have it. I'm afraid to use it because I am sure that that thing is going to become unraveled by maybe some loose stitch somewhere. And then when I finished that, I did the same thing on a hat, knitted flat. And the owners of the shop, they use the same, I'm guessing that's why they use the mattress stitch to close the hat. I have no idea how they did it. But I made a hat and I made a scarf. Now, soon after that, like just a few days after that, she passed away. And I brought my knitting with me, and it's still here. So, and that was it. That I just knit for her, and that was all. So it was after a year later that I was pregnant with my son, and I just thought, what if I can make baby hats? I didn't know about circular knitting, nothing. So I took the classes. They taught me how to make a baby beanie. And when I got the hang of it, I just stayed home making a million baby beanies and making a million scarves. And my friends that got scarves from me at that time, they were super long. I didn't put two and two together. You don't have to finish the scarf when you run out of yarn. And that's what I did. I finished that scarf when I didn't have any more yarn. So I'm sure they still have it. I haven't seen them wearing it, but it's like, how come I gave that as a gift? But it was made with love. So I had my son, I stayed with him, and I stopped knitting. I was taking care of him and all of that. Years later, I'm pregnant with my daughter. And at this time, I am thinking, I'm really not going to go back to work. I want to stay with my two kids, and I need to do something because as busy as parenting is of young children, teenage children, or the children, I'm assuming, I still wanted to do something from home. I am not used. I was always used to do things, to do something, to be creative. So I am thinking, what do I do? What kind of remote job I can do and all of that, when I just said, let me try to see if this creative outlet could become a business. So when I was pregnant with my daughter, I learned how to make baby pants and all kinds of props. Whatever was popular at that time, I learned how to make. So what I did is that I took the white pages. I don't know if white pages are still a thing, but I got my huge book of white pages and I started looking for newborn photographers in Connecticut. I called them all. I would say something like, my name is Yessy, I'm knitting baby props, and I would like to send you pictures. Let me know if this is something that you would like. For your newborn photo sessions, I can make a few things for you. You can choose what you would like in exchange for pictures. So at this time, Instagram is new. So I wanted to have good pictures on my Instagram. So I also love photography, but I wanted more professional pictures to start showing my work. So surprising to me, there were a few that said, yes, we would love to work with you, send us pictures of what you have. And there was one that was local to me. So I would go to her, she would choose the props that she wanted, I would get pictures from her. And I started to see, this can become something. So I did this for a while. Again, being a mom of a little child and a baby was a lot. So I did as much as I could. But there was a point when I think at this time, I was still pregnant with my daughter, when my husband and my son, at the time he was 3, 4, they started to put my studio together. So we moved, was in this room to another room, and we went to IKEA, they got me a few shelves, and they are still here. My husband, he taught my son, how to screw, things like that, and they put all of this together. So little by little, I started working with more newborn photographers. There was a time where life really got busy, so I wasn't needing that much. But later, Jessy's designs continued to what it is today. So you can see most of it on my posts and everything. But this is something that I am doing, that I have been doing for years, and I never thought I would be like this would be my business. I always again thought I'm gonna be working either as a teacher or having my own practice, and I would continue to be creative because this is the way that I have always been. My mom, she always told me since I can remember, you learn everything you can because you don't know when things are going to become handy for anything, not just for money, but for us. So this is something that I do not just to help financially at my home here, to help my mom financially at home, but it's also something that grounds me, something that I really love doing, something that I truly enjoy. And I knew early on when I started designing that I wanted my Colombian culture to be portrayed in my work. So there are techniques that I absolutely love. I love lace, I love cables, but fair isle work is the work that really, really, really gets me. So if you see my designs, I include my family in my names, for example. Again, I think being far away from home, not be able to go super often. We try to go every year, but somehow it doesn't seem enough, right? When you have your family far away, my family is very close. So I try, and I think I don't think about it when I do it, but when I talk about it is when I realize, I need something to help me feel closer to my family, to what I know from back home. So there is people that say, for example, you have been here 20 years. This is your home now. And yes, this is my home. This has been my home for 20 years, but that's still my home. I still feel it, that it's still my home. So I mentioned this at another time. When I go home, I feel like if I never left. Sometimes I think I never matured because when I go back, I still feel like that little girl that I wasn't that little when I left, but I was in my 20s, but I feel like that young girl that never left, like if time never passed. I just see the time passing by in the mirror, of course. But a lot of my designs, they are named by family members. So for example, the Mary hat, we call my mom Mari. I mean, obviously I call her mom, but everybody calls her Mari. So the Mari hat, which you call the pattern Mary, and I have called it too for practical reasons. But the Mari hat was the first beanie or the first hat that I put out there. The first one that I designed, and I think the first one that I put out there. My first design was a cowl, and it was called the Anthony cowl, or it's called the Anthony cowl, also family. Mari is my mom, so that pattern is very special to me. I have my other aunts in different patterns, uncles, my nephew. So for example, the Eduardo hat, you can see also, if you want to read more without me crying or know more about it, in my blog posts, I have blogs about most of the patterns and the story behind them. So with my uncle Eduardo, who passed away about 10 years ago, I wanted something that would reflect him in a way. He was always very proud of his Colombian heritage. So obviously I had to use Fair Isle, and I just wanted something that would respectfully remind me of him. So every now and then I have the Eduardo hat, and jokingly, my uncle Eduardo was the husband of my aunt, of my mom's sister, but we don't say my political uncle or anything like that. They are your uncles, they are your aunts. So on his side of the family, there was this niece that she would say, I'm his favorite. And I would say on my side, I'm his favorite. So jokingly, we would say, no, I'm his favorite. And she would say, no, I'm his favorite. So when I made the Eduardo hat, after he passed away, I made her one, like my original sample. I sent it to her and I said, this is for you. And I made another one for me. So in this way, I feel myself, and this is something that the rest of you are not gonna relate to, the way I feel that I can relate to a piece. But when I release a pattern like this, I don't want you to relate to my uncle, for example, but I want you to see that there is a memory in this piece that I'm trying to show the inspiration that I have always felt about the culture that I grew up surrounded with. So that's what I want you to see. I want you to see that this is my translation of my culture, and that you're working on it. You can maybe feel a little bit of some of that history, if I can use that word. So, for example, the Esteban Bini, that's the name of my oldest nephew, my first nephew. And I always, again, trying to feel connected. That pattern, along with the Esteban Cowl, the Esteban Bini, I made it not just for my nephew, but in a way that I can always give back to my culture. So my nephew, he's small, and I just thought, I want to name something after him that reminds me also of Colombia and that helps me to give back. So some of the proceeds from these two patterns, the Esteban Cabo, the Esteban Bini, a portion is for him, for my nephew. A portion is to help a group of children in need back home. So before I go home, I check, okay, how many Esteban Bini sold, how many Esteban Cowell sold. I get some of those proceeds, and I buy here school supplies. It can be backpacks, pencils, erasers, bows, or hair ties for the girls, things that are going to help her to have a better experience at school. It could be notebooks, color pencils, crayons. So I get as many things as I can, and then when I go back, I bring them there. So this is something that you are not going to see. I'm not going to show the kids or anything, but I can show you the supplies. Maybe when the kids are using them, the teacher can send me a picture. I show that at one point. So you're going to be able to see those things. But I need, as a person, I need as a mother, I need as a wife, I need as a maker, a designer, I need to be rooted to something. I need the history, I need the memories, I need all of these for me to feel that my work is meaningful. For me, it's not enough to say, I love lace, let me design a lace pattern and put it out there because it's just beautiful. To me, for me to enjoy my work and show it, it has to have some kind of meaning. That's why, for example, when I work with yarn companies or small hand dyers, I try, if it's something that is going to be long term, I always try to include a piece. So there was a time that I was working with Lion Brand. So Lion Brand had ferrule pieces. I think there was a cable pattern over there. Yes, there was a cable design that I made with them. And I had to include my Fair Isle beanie. So the Olena hat that I made for Lion Brand yarn is my contribution from my culture, my roots. I'm working now, for example, with Blue Sky Fibers. With Blue Sky Fibers, they have my Esteban Bini and Esteban Cowell, for example. So when I work with these companies and I share these pieces and I tell them, this is what it means to me, and I never know how somebody's going to react to it, right? But I put it out there. When I hear the warm response, for me, it's like a sense of relief, a sense of, let's do this. Let me show you the beauty that I have in my head from the things that I have seen since I am little, from the things that I still see every time I go there. So when I go there, and you saw this from last year, I was in very close contact with one of the indigenous from the Wayús. And I purchased a few of her pieces, bags. I showed them to you. I said, I would like to help her. This is all she has. I met with her 3 days, 2 or 3 days, and I will share in my stories, this is what it's here. And I talked to her, got to know her story, and I say, let me do my best to spread the word to help you. Quite a few of you wanted her pieces, and I cannot tell you without just breaking down right now and just stopping the podcast how much it means for somebody there to be supported in this work. So I am truly thankful in behalf of Anna, that's her name. And I know that you guys are enjoying the pieces that you got from her. You can see the history that, something that is passing along from women to women. You see these women eating together, all the generations in there, and working on this craft. And it's absolutely a beautiful, beautiful sight. So I try to, as I'm talking to you about this, I talk to my children about it. My husband, he loves Colombia. And every time he goes, he falls in love of everything that he sees, the food, the people, the everything. And this is something that I try to show my kids as much as I can. So I didn't look at my notes much. So I am hoping that I didn't forget a lot of things. Let me just kind of quickly go and see, because I don't think I'm going to be able in the near future to talk about all of these again without really breaking. So again, if you're still here, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to this. And anyway, so in my notes at the end, I put something that I'm just going to read in here. Okay, I wrote in there that I wanted to share with you that I always say, I don't just design patterns, I design memories. My goal is for people who knit with my patterns to feel like they are creating something meaningful and rooted in history and heart. So I think I said it better when I wrote it down than when I was expressing myself, but that's my goal with my work. So again, thank you for being here. I'm just going to finish with that. I don't know what's in the future for Yessy's designs. I'm going to continue to work to the best of my ability with the yarn companies, the ones that are giving their trust to me. Right now I'm with Blue Sky Fibers. I have worked a few times with Hobie. I thank all of these yarn companies for looking at me and saying, we would like you to work with us. For me, it's a pleasure. For me, it's a privilege. I give my all. I give my all when I work with a yarn company. I give it my all when I'm working with, for example, my friend Helen from Untangled Yarn. She hand dyes yarn, and she has a subscription box. Jessica and we work together in a box. Yes, I love to support as many friends and other small businesses that I can. So if you are one of them, feel free to reach out. I do my best to be able to help other people. I have seen through the years how many people have helped me, how many people have trusted in me. And the only reason for me to say no, it might be time reasons, but it's not going to be because I just plainly don't want to work with you. So I don't know what other reason I can think of right now. But feel free to reach out to me and I will we'll talk about it. So I have worked through the years with other hand dyers, and I love to promote. I use my platform. If you see my feed, if you see my blog, my website, you are not just gonna see me in there. I don't like that. I don't like everything to be just about me. This is what I did with this, and this is. I want you to see that there is other people in this beautiful knitting world, yarn world, fiber artists that are doing amazing, amazing things. So you're gonna see the ones that I'm having the chance to work with, or maybe the ones that I have had the privilege to meet. You're gonna see them either on my feed or in my on my blogs or on stories, but I share as much as I can because I know how it feels to be supported, and I want to just to continue to spread the love that has been shown to me. So if if you're here, thank you again. I look forward to record another podcast in the near future for you. Make sure that you subscribe if you wanna know more about what is coming new. This was a special episode where I just feel that I have to share some of my story. Again, Claudia, thank you for everything, for being an inspiration. And to all of you, thank you for being here. I hope that you have a great rest of your day. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'm the one that reads and comments myself, so I will do my best to answer your questions if you have any here on my channel. Everything that I have to link, if I need a link for something to show you, I would have everything on the description below. I have an affiliate link with Darn Good Yarns. I will share that with you. Claudia Quintanilla's information, I will show that right there, and that's it. So have a great rest of your day. Happy knitting.